Home builders are abandoning homes, leaving them unfinished as we continue to see the housing crash unfold. Just today, we got new news from the US Census Bureau that the sale of newly built homes collapsed by 30% year over year. This collapse in home sales brought the seasonally adjusted annualized sales figure to only 590,000 in April 2022, everyone. Get this, folks. That's, as I said, 30% below what it was a year ago, about 45% below the pandemic high that was established in 2020, and this figure is now about the same that it was back in 2016, 2017. The reason that home sales are going down is because buyers are dropping out of the market left and right due to higher mortgage rates, higher inflation, as well as a general perception now that the housing market is entering a downturn. And this is likely just the start for the problems that home builders are going to experience in 2022, because not only are closed sales declining, we're also seeing a decline in home buyer traffic. That is, people at the start of their search going to buy a new home. That figure is down 30% year over year through May, data reported by the National Association of Home Builders. I mean, I think by the summer, folks, not only the broader housing market, but specifically the new home sale market is going to be a complete ghost town. We're going to see a massive surge in inventory of newly built homes, and home builders are going to be desperate to get rid of their supply. Because the thing that no one realizes right now is that home builders are actually building too many homes. There's over 800,000 single-family homes actively under construction. That is near an all-time high, almost as high as it was in 2006 before the last housing bubble popped. And what's particularly scary about all these homes being built is that we don't have the buyers for them. You can see here 800,000 homes under construction, the blue line, compared to only 591,000 home sales in April. This is actually the first time in US history where we have ever seen homes actively under construction being significantly above home sales. That means home builders are building too many homes right now, just like they did 15 years ago before the last housing bubble popped. Now, to be fair, a lot of these homes that are under construction are already purchased. They're already under contract. And in fact, about 520,000 of the single family homes under construction have already been purchased according to US Census Bureau data, while about 280,000 homes are currently being built on spec, meaning that there is no buyer and the home builder is assuming that there'll be a buyer once the property is completed. 6 months ago, this seemed like a good assumption because back at the end of 2021, early 2022, it seemed like the housing market bull run was going to go on forever and that home buyers would keep flooding into the market. But now I have a feeling that a lot of those 280,000 spec homes are going to get delivered onto the market over the next 3 to 6 months, and there's going to be no buyer for them. So they're just going to be sitting there, and home builders are going to need to slash the prices in order to offload them. But that's not all, folks. On the 520,000 homes that have already been purchased that are currently being built, we are already starting to see a wave of canceled contracts on those homes. This is something I talked a lot about in a video I did about 2 months ago on the canceled contract wave, and we're already seeing reports that this is happening. In this article from CNBC called Home Builder Sentiment Falls to Two-Year Low, if we scroll down, we can see a quote from Ivy Zelman, one of the foremost housing analysts in America. Our survey of new home builders noticed a pickup in cancellation rates, and some of those cancellations even, Ivy Zelman says, we've heard that they're coming from the hotter housing markets, which are in the Sun Belt, and are actually coming from private investors. Wow, folks. So not only is it regular home buyers starting to cancel contracts, it's investors in hot Sun Belt markets. And this explains why the South is seeing the biggest crash in demand for newly built homes in America in 2022. We can see here that the South registered 307,000 annualized home sales in April 2022. That's an unbelievable 37% decline from where it was a year ago, and over a 50% decline from the previous peak in 2020. The South includes the areas in yellow on this map, according to data from the US Census Bureau. You can see it's a fairly big area, but mainly we're talking about Texas, we're talking about Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee. These are where we're seeing home sales plummet. We're also seeing home sales fall in the orange area in the Midwest, down 25% year over year. They're also down 12% on the western half of America. But interestingly, in the Northeast, home sales are up 17% 17% year over year. So the Northeast seems to be sustaining demand for new homes while everywhere else it's down, but especially in the South. And what this data suggests is that we are now seeing a slowdown in new home buyers moving into the South, folks. That's right, the migration cycle that occurred not only during the pandemic, but in the years before the pandemic of all of these people moving to the South, it has likely reached its peak. And in future years, we're going to see fewer and fewer people move to states like Florida, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. And when you think about it, this makes sense. The South has gotten really expensive. Buying a home in a place like Austin, Texas now is just as expensive as buying a home in the New York metro area. Meanwhile, the cost of buying or renting a home in Tampa is now just as expensive as doing so in Chicago. So the value proposition for people now to move to the South in terms of affordability is no longer there, and thus fewer people are going to be doing that into the future. And home builders know this, folks. That's why they're starting to abandon certain projects. We're seeing a lot of unfinished homes stack up in different markets, and due to rising materials costs and labor shortages, home builders are saying, well, it's just not worth it for me to finish this home, nor is it worth it for me to pull more building permits. After surging an astounding 40% during the first 18 months of the pandemic, single-family building permits have now edged down 6 months in a row, particularly in the South in a market like Texas, north of Dallas. Take a look at this article. Home building permits falling fast in Frisco, Salina, and Prosper. These are 3 of the fastest growing cities in America, just north of Dallas. Yet year-to-date home building permits are down 21 to 45% in these boom towns. Now, some people might say, well, isn't this bad that home builders are letting projects go unfinished or are no longer pulling permits? Because if home builders are doing this, then we're not going to get the homes onto the market to cure the housing shortage. But I would actually interpret this in the opposite way. Home builders pulling fewer permits is saying, no, we actually don't have a housing shortage in these markets. We have too many homes being built, because that 800,000 single-family homes actively under construction is near an all-time high. In addition, there's another 157,000 units that home builders have permitted already, but not yet started construction. So that's nearly 1 million single-family homes in total that are currently in the pipeline, just as home buyer demand around America is plummeting. For my longtime viewers, you'll know this is something I warned you all about 4 months ago in January. I did multiple videos about how home builders were building too many homes in America. And in fact, I actually opened up a short position betting against the 2 largest home builders in America, D.R. Horton and Lennar, back in late January. Here's what I said back then. My next bet is going to be against home builders. We're going to see home builder stocks go down in price, go down in value over the next couple months. So I'll be buying some put options against companies like D.R. Horton and Lennar. Fast forward to today in late May, and the put options I bought on D.R. Horton are now up 180% in value, and they're also up 170% in value on Lennar. I'm not saying that to brag or boast. I'm saying that to let you guys know that if you evaluate real estate through a fundamental data perspective, looking at things like job growth, population growth, wage growth, and how many homes are being built, and more broadly, can home buyers afford homes? That's going to tell you what's going to happen in the future in the housing market. And when I looked at that data 4 months ago, I said to myself, this doesn't make any sense what home builders are doing. They're building way too much, and now it's becoming obvious in late May, heading into the summer, that that is the case. And I'm going to leave you all with 2 key fundamental takeaways from this data in this video. Number 1, if you're someone who's looking to buy a newly constructed home right now, understand that in the next 3 to 4 months, you're going to have a lot more available options on the market as buyer demand continues to decline and canceled contracts put more homes back on the market that were previously spoken for. Here's the second takeaway, folks, and that's that these issues that home builders are having right now, and the massive supply of unfinished homes and the decline in buyer traffic, this is not only a sign of a change in the housing cycle and impending housing crash, it's a sign of a recession. Because if we go back and look at 50 years of data, according to the US Census Bureau, we can see each time we had this spike in single-family homes that were actively under construction, a big run-up, we basically have a recession 1 to 2 years later. Look at the yellow bars. Spike in homes under construction 1972, recession right after. Spike in 1978, recession a year and a half after. Spike in the late 80s, recession 2 years later. Spike in the mid-2000s, I think you all know what happened after that, recession and major financial crash 1 to 2 years later. Now we're in another spike, which says that the economic cycle is turning and is yet another indicator that America is heading towards a recession. Interestingly, this indicator says maybe the recession is further away than people think. A lot of people, including myself, suspect maybe by the end of 2022 we're going to have a recession. But if you go off the home building cycle, it says that maybe the recession is going to be more in 2023, in the middle to second half of the year. But of course, home builders and home building is just one predictor of the economic cycle, one predictor of when a recession is going to come. I'm going to cover more of these indicators in the future so you can understand whether the recession is going to hit in 2022 or 2023 and how you should prepare for it. So if you want to see that content, hit the subscribe button below. Also turn on those subscribe notifications so you get notified every time I post a video. And also lastly, please make sure to smash that like button. That's the best way you can support me in this channel.